Welcome to NLX's new podcast, The Extra Mile. We're here today with Bob Michie from Metro MSP. Bob is a founder and a president of Metro MSP. He's also a cybersecurity expert in his space, and he's also a founding member of NLX, which is Network Lead Exchange. He's one of our founding members. Terrific businessman, terrific networker, and Bob, I want to welcome you here, and thanks for coming on.
Oh, thanks. This is going to be a great podcast for both us and the members of NLX to really share what we do and how we can help people.
No, I think you're absolutely right. Well, look, I saw this new portfolio here you brought, the cyber crisis, and I think that this is a great segue into what's happening with businesses online today, where there's so much uncertainty that I'd really like you to, the audience today needs to know about cybersecurity and how it relates to their business. So why don't you give us a few pointers?
Do we have about 12 or 20 weeks of podcasts that we can do? Because
well, we'll break it down. We'll break it down into segments.
We're gonna have to break it down because the document that I just brought with me, the headline inside is, it pretty much explains itself. When you fall victim to a cyber attack by no fault of your own, are they going to call you stupid or irresponsible? And people really just don't understand the risks that are out there, and people think that the days of running antivirus and having a firewall from a big box store isn't enough anymore.
No, it's crazy. And look, I have a digital marketing company, and you do all of my security, you do all of my email for my clients. I don't mess around with email. Never will, never have, never will. Okay, but I think people need to understand. People in general don't understand, how vulnerable they are as a business owner. So I think you need to maybe give us a few concepts of why cybersecurity is so important. Okay, maybe even use an example of because I know you're involved in a lot of different verticals.
Yep.
You manage a lot of different companies. I think it's important that they hear this from you.
Yeah. So the big thing here is, people think cybersecurity is an IT problem. And that's what they got to get out of their head. It's not an IT problem. It actually resides. The solutions really have to decide with the business owner. He's got to buy in that we need to protect our business because it's his business, his bank accounts. And a lot of the small business say, well, I'm too small to really matter, or I don't. The bad guys don't want me. Well, here's the thing. Do you have a bank account? They want it, and we're seeing that all the time. And email still is the number one way that people are getting into the business, and it's called business email compromise. And this week I was actually with Chris Krebs, the former director of the DHS and of Homeland Security, and he said it point blank. He said, "We're on the forefront. We are the frontline defense. All the IT companies." But it's an education play. We have to make sure that the business owners are educated and the employees are educated, because we can put all kinds of controls in place, but if an employee clicks on something and lets the bad guys in, or doesn't think about what's going on, it's a problem. Now, for example, we're working with someone who had a $27,000 loss a couple weeks ago. He got a phone call from the fraud department at the bank. Turns out it wasn't the fraud department at the bank. It was the bad guys.
Oh my gosh!
He spent 3 hours on the phone with this perpetrator, and let him into his computer. And whenever he got a text message on the phone, he gave it to the guy at the other end.
Oh my gosh!
Wow. So when you go to the bank and you say, "Oh, I lost money out of my account," well, it was validated by you. It came from your computer. He got lucky, and he actually did get most of that money back. But this was somebody that had been through some training, but these guys are just really good. And for the most part, you need to do your own due diligence around what's going on. And that's why we really want people to have an education program in place. But even before that, business owners need to understand what their risk is, and really do a cybersecurity risk assessment of what you have and where you're vulnerable. Because a lot of people also, Bruce, you're a small company, but if you had had some more employees out there, you wouldn't necessarily know all the cloud services that your guys are using. You know, people think they're going to, you know, we get a lot of millennials coming in, and I'm not picking on millennials. I'm just saying people are jumping on the web and saying, oh, I can download this tool, or I can use this website to
absolutely
to share files to circumvent some of the security that we're putting in place. Well, we're putting it in place to protect you and to make sure you got it. So if you had an employee that opened up their own Dropbox account and started storing documents there, and they left, what happens to that data?
Good point. Good point.
And you know that data is not backed up. It's part of that employee's personal files. Dropbox isn't going to give it to you. It's not theirs.
No, not at all.
Same thing. You know, same thing with these free Microsoft accounts. You know, you go set up an Outlook account, Outlook.com account for somebody. It's like, well, that's a consumer account. There's no protections on it, and when that goes away, when that person goes away, so's the account.
People don't realize that. They don't. And you know, you made a comment in the beginning, Bob, that it's not an IT issue. It's above IT.
Sure.
Okay. Explain that a little more, because to me, you know, right away, a business owner thinks that he would call his IT professional, okay, whenever there is something going on, or he or she feels that they're not protected or needs protection, and they'll ask you, am I protected? Okay. So why don't you expand on that a little more?
Sure. We can go so far to train people and enable things like multi-factor authentication, but when it comes right down to it, the business owner has to understand that he owns the risk of what's going on in his business, and we got to do things to really protect them. If someone calls me that they have an active breach going on, we're going to do things in place to try and mitigate and stop the spread. And I'm going to tell him, call your attorney and call the insurance company. That's what has to happen, because if someone jumps in, if the business owner jumps in and says, well, Steve's computer got hacked, just reload it and let's get back to work, you've just thrown away evidence. You've just thrown away the potential investigation that the insurance company might require to even pay a claim. I mean, cyber insurance is out there. The requirements for cyber insurance just to get a policy now went from 3 to 5 questions to 8 to 10 pages of questions this year, because of all the risks that's going on. And so the insurance company is really dictating things that you need to be doing to get insurance. And oh, by the way, if your insurance agent fills out that form for you, that big questionnaire, and they're saying you're doing things that you didn't do, or you fill it out based on things you didn't do, you run the risk of the insurance not getting paid, kind of like getting health insurance when you're a smoker and checking the box that says you're a not smoker.
Understood.
Okay. There's 2 cases. There's travelers insurance was just in litigation for somebody that had a breach, and then 6 months later had another breach, and they said they had multi-factor authentication on everywhere. They didn't, and that's why when we're turning these controls on, it's more than just turning the control on. We need to document and prove it later.
Understood. Okay. So you just mentioned something too that's music to my ears, is multi-factor authentication. Some people don't know what that is, and you can explain that.
Sure.
But more importantly, people think that have multi-factor authentication, what a pain in the neck it is. Okay. But tell them why that pain in the neck is so important.
Okay. So if multi-factor authentication costs you conservatively an extra hour a year of your login times, you've just saved tens of thousands of dollars from a data breach. So we worked with someone that didn't have multi-factor authentication on, and the bad guys got into his email account. The bad guys, from getting into that email account, resent invoice information to clients, and it was a $10,000 loss to this individual because the money got wired someplace it shouldn't. But that's only the start of it. He notified the insurance company. The insurance company brought in the forensics team. $35,000 later, after the forensic work was done, the insurance paid the forensic work, but he was still out the $10,000.
That's just now. I'm going to parlay that. What would it have saved him? What would it have cost him? But what would it have saved him had he hired a company like yourself to do cybersecurity for him and put the right processes in place, what would that have cost him, actually saved him?
It probably would have cost him about $10,000 for his company for the year,
Right.
but he wouldn't have any bad press. He wouldn't have the liability of having to check the box when he's working with new clients that says, have you ever had a data breach in the last 2 years? I was looking at a document this morning for somebody. It's like they want 24 months of history if has there been any incidences.
Wow. Okay.
So, and in this case, it was just his, it was his data, and we were able to prove it. But in some cases where people are using the consumer grade accounts, we might not be able to tell what was actually accessed. So you have to assume every piece of email in that account was accessed. How much email do you have in your account that could be damaging in the wrong hands?
Oh, forget it. I don't even want to think about it.
Or personally.
Right. No, absolutely. Absolutely. So it's not a matter, and when people have the right process in place and they have a cybersecurity expert such as yourself, does that guarantee them that they're not going to have a breach? Or
we aren't guaranteeing. We can't guarantee that they're not going to have a breach because I can't control what people click on. In this other case in the case I just explained a little while ago with the bank, all the controls are in place, but the user didn't think, and he bought into the script and the message, and he graciously gave away the keys to the kingdom. So we're really here to help you manage and mitigate the risk, because it's not for businesses today. It's not a matter of if you're going to get hacked. It's a matter of when you're going to get hacked, and we'll limit that through controls. And a lot of times you want to make sure that employees have access to everything they need access to, but not the keys to the kingdom.
So part of your package then has to be training for the employees, to train them on what they should be looking for from the business, and hopefully they take the business acumen that you teach them, and they take it home with them, and they use it at home as well. Okay?
Absolutely.
Okay. Why don't you tell the audience how they can get in touch with you to do your cyber risk assessment?
Sure. You can reach out to me at bob@metromsp.com. It's B-O-B at metro, M-E-T-R-O, M-S-P, marysampeter.com. The other thing you can do is I actually have a blueprint posted online of 15 things that people can do today to protect their business. It's over at 15ways.metromsp.com.
Wow. I didn't even know that. I thought I knew everything about you. No, I didn't even know that. Okay. All right. Terrific. And how can they get a hold of this beautiful color pamphlet? Show this up to the audience here. Right there.
So
Bob.
Cyber Crisis is
Right.
the new pamphlet that it actually talks about somebody else that had a cyber breach that went south. And send me an email, and I can get that out to them too. Bob@metromsp.com.
Bob@metromsp. Okay, Bob, I want to thank you very much for being on this podcast for NLX, The Extra Mile. Once again, Bob Mitchie from Metro MSP. Bob, thank you very much for your insight and your knowledge on cybersecurity. Really appreciate it.